guys, it's Natalia and welcome back to another Fashion Design 101 episode. So today we have a very highly requested video for how to do shirring, which I have mistakenly called smocking for the longest time, and nobody told me. Apparently there is a difference between shirring and smocking, and for whatever reason it was ingrained in my head that it was an interchangeable word and that some people just wanted to sound fancier saying shirring. But turns out they are actually two different techniques. So come to find out, like a year after, using it all the time for my shop, so love that for me. Anyway, today we're going to be learning how to shirr because I do that all the time for my shop, as you guys know. Cue all of the pictures of things I've put out, but you guys ask for this all the time. It looks like a very daunting technique. It looks like it would be complicated, but it's actually super simple and there's not really much to it. So whether you're advanced or a beginner, this is something you can so easily do, and I think it adds a really nice touch to a piece of clothing. It also is a really cool way to like upcycle things, especially if they're bigger on you or whatever. I think it's really fun, and it's a great way to add stretch to something that's not actually supposed to be stretchy. So we love shirring here, and I'm just going to get straight into it. First things first, the most important thing you need for shirring is elastic thread, which will look something like this. It is technically just like a normal thread, except it's made of elastic, so you could either see it as a thread that's elastic or elastic that looks like a thread. Either way, it is basically just a very thin piece of elastic that is obviously thin enough to go into our bobbin of our sewing machine, so we sew with this instead of normal thread on the bobbin. And this is honestly all you need. This is the trick to it. I use normal thread for the top. I haven't seen anybody necessarily say you need anything specific for the top thread or anything, so I've been using normal thread. It's been working just fine for me. And as far as fabrics go, you want to go with something that is woven that has no stretch, obviously, because this is going to add stretch, so you don't want to add stretch to something that already has stretch. You want to add it to something that doesn't have stretch. And additionally, you want to use fabrics that are a little more lightweight. You'll find that heavier weight fabrics don't really end up shirring very well. You can technically do it and it'll shirr, but it's not gonna like go in as much. It's not gonna gather as much. It's not gonna look as nice as it does on a lightweight or medium weight fabric. The best ones are obviously just like, your basic lightweight cottons, but I've definitely used it on like satins and other fun things too, so you can totally experiment with that. But obviously every fabric's going to shirr a little bit different, so you do always want to test try your fabric out before you do it on your actual garment, because again, each one reacts a little bit differently, so you just want to make sure that you get the hang of it before you actually start poking a bunch of holes into your actual garment. So that being said, let's get onto the machine. The most annoying part of shirring is the fact that you do have to hand wind the bobbin. This just helps with the tension of the elastic and all of that. I have done it with the machine before, I'm not gonna lie, but I find that it does actually work best when you do it by hand. I find that it gets less stuck, the tension is less finicky, so definitely have to wind it by hand. So now you take your bobbin and place it in like normal. Just make sure you have enough of that thread over here, and you're gonna thread your machine as normal and bring the bottom thread up. Everything like normal, nothing crazy there. As far as our settings, we're gonna do a normal straight stitch, but we are going to switch the length to something a little bit higher. I usually do like 3.5, 4. We're gonna leave it at 4 for today, but you can kind of mess around with that on your own machine. And then as far as the tension, my machine is kind of pretty good at the normal tension, but sometimes you'll have to adjust that depending on the machine. So again, test try it just to make sure it's good on yours, but this is what we're gonna go with. So I'm actually gonna be sharing one of the orders that I have to make. Since I already have to make it, might as well make a video on it. But I'm gonna make one of the baby doll dresses from my site, and I like to put together one of the side seams and then just do like straight lines all across, and then put the next side seam together at the end of all of the shirring, just because I feel like that keeps it consistent. It kind of saves a little bit of time. You don't have to do like 2 separate pieces. It kind of counts as one. So I kind of find that that's the best way to do it. Obviously, open up the seam so that it is flat on the other side. I have to go press it, but it will be pressed open like that. Make sure that it doesn't get caught on either side when you're shirring, but this is kind of what I like to start with, and I do have it marked with a pin where I want it to to end. I find that that's the easiest way because otherwise it's just really hard to figure out where you're supposed to stop. So that's kind of how I prep for it, and now we can actually start doing it. So for my top hem, I like to line it up with this line, which is the 1 5/8 line. So that leaves about that much space for the top. That's where I like to start the first line, but obviously that just depends on your own design, but that is a line that I like to follow. And then once I'm doing line after line, I just line it up on the presser foot edge. I find that that's the easiest way to line it up line by line and be consistent. So that's kind of what I do when it comes to sewing. So I'm gonna line it up, like I said, with the 1 5/8 inch line. I'm going to bring this down, and you want to make sure you are sewing on the right side of the fabric because the elastic is obviously on the bottom, so you want that to be on the inside. So make sure that you're doing that correctly, and then you can start. I personally backstitch. I've heard people say you shouldn't, other people say you should. Kind of depends. If you're not gonna backstitch, make sure you leave enough elastic at the end to kind of tie it off or to sandwich it into the seam or do something with it to make sure it locks into place. But I do like to backstitch to make sure it really is locked into place. And now you can just sew your straight line. Once you get to the end of the line, you can either backstitch and then do the next line, or you can technically pivot. Again, some people tell you to do it, others tell you not to. Sometimes I just do it depending on the fabric or depending on the mood that I'm in, but it does obviously save time. So if you pivot it over and then bring the needle back up and kind of like wiggle it out a bit and then place it where the next line is going to be. That helps reduce the waste of the elastic from like cutting and stopping and all of that. It obviously saves you time, but again, some fabrics, if they're too lightweight and too delicate, might start kind of like ripping with that or might get pulled over too much. So just be mindful of what you're working with. But if not, you can make your next line. Like I said, I like to line it up with the presser foot edge. So I'm putting my shirred line onto that edge to make sure that it's consistent all the way around. And you do want to make sure that you are stretching it out as you go so that it doesn't actually get sewn up in a gathered way, but rather in a straight way that ends up being stretchy, if that makes sense. And again, once you reach the edge, you can then pivot and do the next line. And now all you have to do is just continue until you reach the end point for your own design. And it might take you a very long time, but eventually you will get there. So I will see you guys on the other side of this. Here is a halfway point for you guys to see what it kind of looks like. Obviously, it stretches a lot. This is what it looks like on the outside, and this is what the inside looks like. So it's just a bunch of lines of elastic, as you can see. As you guys saw, I did a little bit of the starting and stopping method. Sometimes I just switch around between both, but either works just fine, as you can see. So yeah, let's go to the finished result. This is what the final result looks like. It literally looks like a toddler dress, but I promise this fits over me. Insert pictures here. When it comes to shirring, it makes things look so small. Obviously some fabrics more than others, but it does stretch out a whole lot. As you can tell, it obviously does stretch out over my bust, but yeah, this is what it looks like. I think it's such a cute little detail to add to things, and honestly, once I learned it last summer, I have not stopped doing stuff with it ever since because I am obsessed with how it looks like, and obviously all of you guys seem to love it as well. So yeah, that's that on shirring. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and comment down below what other techniques or videos you want to see from me next. And of course, subscribe for more if you're not already subscribed so you get notified every time I upload a new video, and feel free to hit that bell notification so you actually get notified, because you know the algorithm does not like us all the time. And if you want to stay up to date with my life and my shop, you can follow my Instagrams at Natalia Trevino for my shop and at Natalia.Trevino for my personal. That is it for today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!